My rapist sent me an apology. I'm considering taking legal action now that I have evidence. I am not the original poster. Original post by you. The cons of breathing in are true off my chest. Reminder: do not comment on linked posts. Trigger warnings. Rape and sexual assault. Mention of panic disorder and OCD. Less than. Mood spoilers. Trauma. Conflict. Resolution. Less than. An NBSP. ### my rapist sent me an apology. I'm considering taking legal action now that I have evidence. Wed. November 30th, 2022. He sent a lengthy apology to my email. And after I read it, I sent him a text to say I did so. I asked if we were on the same page about what he did. And he wrote that he took advantage of me while I was drunk and stalked me for a little while after. He fully admits to raping me. In writing. How can he be so stupid? After the assault, I developed panic disorder and OCD. The OCD might have been present before the event, but it definitely heightened after it happened. I'm just not sure what to do. Press charges? Get him sent to jail? I'm trying to figure out what would feel like justice for me, the survivor. But am stuck. An NBSP. #UPDATE. My rapist sent me an apology. I'm considering taking legal action now that I have evidence. Son. December 4th, 2022. Hey everyone. I thought I'd let you all know what decision I made. Firstly, I heard everyone loud and clear to speak with a lawyer first. Thank you so much for that advice. I spoke with a lawyer about the best course of action for my case. And he said that since my perpetrator doesn't have a lot of money, I would get the most retribution by going to the police first. So, I called the non-emergency line and had an officer come to my house. He interviewed me for a good hour and a half. I gotta say, my nervous system is still shot from having to recall that event in detail. I kind of feel traumatized all over again, but am confident this is the right choice. Also, for those of you who are familiar with tarot, I asked my deck, what will be the outcome from all of this? And I drew the Ten of Swords reversed. I'd be curious to hear anyone's interpretation on what that means. An NBSP. #FINAL update. My rapist sent me an apology. I'm considering taking legal action now that I have evidence. Sat. August 5th, 2023. Hey everyone. I know it's been almost a year, but I wanted to give you all an update. This will be my last one, but I'm happy to answer any questions in comments and through chat. Long story short, I did not take legal action, but he and I actually created a plan which has worked out for the past 8 months. Here's what happened. A couple weeks after I called the non-emergency line and spoke with the officer, I was assigned a detective who I spoke in the phone with. At the conclusion of our conversation, he asked me if I wanted to press charges. I told him I was considering it but was not sure yet. Previously, I had spoken with a lawyer who said I can take my case 2 ways. Through civil court, or through criminal court. When I was talking with the detective, I wasn't sure if I wanted to go the criminal route, or even go through with anything at all. The interview with the officer was extremely hard, and the idea of having to repeat my story in court sounded exhausting and almost not worth it. Here's where it gets wild. The same day I talked to the detective, I ran into my perpetrator at a bar. 3 years. I hadn't seen this piece of trash in 3 years. Since the incident occurred, I was driving to the bar I regularly hang out at, until my friend texted me saying he's celebrating someone's birthday at a karaoke bar I don't often go to. I made a U-turn and headed toward the karaoke bar. I walk into the private karaoke room the birthday girl booked, and boom, there he is, sitting across from my friend who invited me there. Side note, The friend who invited me knew that I was Saw, but did not know the name or what the person looked like. Him and I lock eyes and both of our faces immediately drop. I then turn around and book it out of the private room and outside of the bar. By this point the panic is starting to take over. So bad. I think I'm about to have a stroke. That's how weird I was feeling. I end up sitting on a bench to calm down. He walks out of the bar a few moments later. And I don't know how to explain it, y'all. But a sense of overwhelming calm, strength washed over me. And I asked him if we could talk. He sits down on the bench next to me. Continued in comments. Once he sits down, we stay silent for approximately 5 minutes, not looking at each other. I then say, "What did you do? Say it." Then he says, "I raped you." I hardly remember the rest of the conversation, except that I told him I just spoke to a detective that morning and was considering pressing charges. I also told him I was interviewed by an officer and didn't want to repeat myself in court. I asked him if he'd be willing to pay retribution outside of the legal system, and he obviously said yes. I told him I need time to think about what I want him to do. A few days later, I text him saying I want a certain amount of money, which I will not share here. I was trying to think of creative ideas for retribution, but at the end of the day, I just wanted my therapy expenses and other expenses paid for. He agreed to this amount, but stated he couldn't do it in full. I had him sign a written contract that states he needs to pay me a certain amount of money every month for the next 2 years. He's paid the amount early every time since we agreed to this 8 months ago. I'm not fearful of him. He was my ex-boyfriend after all. I'm just more pissed off this whole incident ruined the relationship with my boyfriend at the time. I don't think he's a bad person, but I do think he did a bad thing. I know this story isn't very girl power of me, and I do have some feelings of shame for not being a voice for other SAW survivors. But honestly, this little plan we created feels right for me, and I'm happy with it. An NBSP reminder: I am not the original poster. In Australia a few months back we had a case where a guy admitted to breaking into a girl's house after a night out and even sent a text message a day after apologizing for doing the worst thing you can do to another human, and with this and multiple other pieces of evidence, he was acquitted. So I never judge people who don't go through the legal route. I could probably get over an assault, but I wouldn't be able to get over the re-traumatization of the legal system. I hope that Oop continues to heal. This is a trauma unlike any other. I sincerely wish her the best. This is actually more justice than the legal system offers. I tried the criminal route when my daughter was SAED. We had evidence. We had a witness and fellow victim. We had to relive the whole experience. Nothing happened. I tried to sue my own SAW abuser. I had mountains of evidence. Therapy bills. Hell, I'm on Social Security and my health insurance is a burden to taxpayers, and yet nothing. Nothing but more pain. She is a voice for SAW survivors. One of the very few successes. Edit. It also enrages me that a robbery victim doesn't have to relive the same amount of hell for evidence. I disagree with the OP's last paragraph. I think is very girl power of her. She got the justice that works for her, and she got her rapist to acknowledge his crime and pay restitution. I definitely don't blame her for not going through the court system, particularly when it's a domestic rape situation. Was no guarantee of an outcome. Good for Op. She is doing what works for her and getting her POS ex to pay restitution and make her life better. I know this isn't very girl power of me. Society seriously needs to stop telling us what we have to do when we were read in order to heal. I pressed charges against mine knowing it would probably go nowhere, but what made me feel better was police took the info and started investigating. It felt to me like, okay, they listened to me and it's a legal matter now, so it really happened. If her resolution is hers, it's perfectly okay. Yes, it would be better if all rapists would end up in prison and or get karmic justice. Sadly, it's not always the case, and as survivors we have to find ways to live again. I can't stand people judging victims because they didn't do the perfect thing. It's not that easy. Man, the fact that so many things had to line up just for a rape victim to get some form of justice is depressing me. I think that whatever you need to do for yourself at this time, and gaining the strength to vocalize it, is very girl power of you. By the way, it doesn't sound like he is an active threat, or that he's unrepentant and actively pursuing other victims. I'd be more saddened that you'd have to put yourself through the trauma again to stop him from victimizing others, which does not appear to be the case here. Restorative justice at work. I know this story isn't very girl power of me, and I do have some feelings of shame for not being a voice for other SAW survivors. But honestly, this little plan we created feels right for me, and I'm happy with it. Oop, if you ever read this, you basically implemented your own version of restorative justice. You did great, and you never need to feel shame about your approach. I hate the fact that realistically this is the best outcome. Rape victims deserves better. I don't think he's a bad person, but I do think he did a bad thing. I think he's a bad person. I hope she talked to her lawyer about this. She asked and received payment to not press charges, continue to cooperate with the police in a criminal matter. Damn, what a sad situation. Honestly, though, with how terrible the legal system is when it comes to getting justice for victims of sexual crimes, this might be the best outcome. At least OP gets something out of it. Please. This is total girl power. Do not tell yourself that again. You gathered evidence, talked about the trauma to an officer, consulted an attorney, confronted the perpetrator, and you are taking steps towards healing. You are a total badass. I salute you and hope you heal fully. This is called restorative justice. The US really needs to update their court systems. As someone whose sister has complex PTSD from her boyfriend rapist, cops really aren't the solution. Our system causes more trauma than helps. Wishing you peace, strength, happiness. Be well. It's tough. I was raped by a complete stranger who followed me in when my door didn't close fully. He did enough physical damage that I almost needed surgery. He was high out of his mind at the time and admitted that he didn't know me. He still got 2 years for drugs and assault. They did not charge him with rape because the state could not prove that I hadn't invited him in. I'm glad OOP took the best course of action for her, getting herself onto a path of healing, and hopefully the rapist on the path to get intervention and abuse perpetrator therapy. Is very girl power of her, even if it wasn't some dramatic, explosive thing. I really hope she finds therapy helpful and develops coping mechanisms to help her feel she has her agency and stability back. This was the right call for her emo. There's a chance she could still lose in court, and then she'd have no leverage to demand anything of him. It sucks that he won't face justice, but I don't think that's necessarily on OP.
If you enjoyed this video, please check out our playlists full of similar content. Epic Haircast is like doom scrolling for your ears. Please like, share, and subscribe.